I knew something was wrong the moment I heard her laughter. It wasn't the soft, familiar laugh I had fallen in love with. It wasn't the tired, end of a long day chuckle she used to give me when I cracked a joke at dinner. This laugh was different, lighter, more playful, almost flirtatious. And it wasn't meant for me. My grip tightened around the takeout bag as I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs. The house was quiet except for that laughter drifting down from our bedroom. A laughter that should have been mine to hear, mine to cause. My stomach clenched. A cold sensation spread through my chest, like ice creeping through my veins. I took a step forward, then stopped. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe she was on the phone, maybe she was watching something funny, maybe. Then I heard it. A man's voice. My breath caught in my throat. The voice was deep, familiar. Too familiar. Mark. A strange ringing filled my ears, drowning out everything else. My best friend, my wife, my home, my bed. My world began to tilt, but a small, stubborn part of me clung to denial. Number. It wasn't what I thought it couldn't be. I forced myself up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. My fingers trembled as I reached for the bedroom door handle. Maybe I should turn around. Maybe I should leave before I saw something that would shatter me completely. But I had to know. I pushed the door open. There they were, Sarah and Mark, in our bed. For a moment, time stopped. The world went silent. My vision narrowed, like I was seeing everything through a tunnel. Sarah gasped, scrambling to pull the sheets over herself, her face morphing from shock to guilt in an instant. Mark sat up, his eyes wide, his mouth opening and closing, like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. I stood there, rooted in place, my mind struggling to process the scene before me. This wasn't happening. This was some kind of sick joke. Some nightmare I would wake up from any second now. I think I dropped the food I'd brought, her favorite pasta from the Italian place down the street. It hit the floor with a dull thud, the scent of garlic and tomatoes filling the room, making my stomach churn. I had planned a surprise date night. I had wanted to make her happy. What a joke. Sarah's lips moved, but I couldn't hear her. My ears were filled with a deafening roar, my own pulse hammering against my skull. I saw her reach for me, but I took a step back, out of her reach. Mark finally found his voice. "Daniel!" I turned on my heel and walked out. Their voices followed me down the stairs, calling my name, begging me to stop, to listen. But I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to know why or how or when. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was that I had just lost everything I thought was real. The front door slammed behind me, and suddenly, I was outside, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. I kept walking, my feet moving on autopilot, my vision blurred with something that might have been tears, but I refused to acknowledge them. I didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys. When I finally managed to unlock the door and slide into the driver's seat, I just sat there, staring blankly ahead. The image of them burned into my mind like a cruel brand. I don't remember driving to the motel. I don't remember checking in. All I remember is lying on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling and replaying everything in my head. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to me? Had it started before or after she stopped saying, "I love you" first? And Mark. Mark had been my best friend since college. We had been through everything together. Breakups, job losses, even my dad's funeral. He had stood by my side through my darkest moments, and I had trusted him with my life. And he had done this. The betrayal burned worse than anything I had ever felt. It hollowed me out from the inside, leaving behind nothing but a gaping void. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like my own skin was suffocating me. The next morning, I filed for divorce, but the hits kept coming. A week later, Sarah called me. She was crying, saying she needed to talk. I didn't want to see her, but something in her voice made me agree. Maybe some masochistic part of me still wanted an explanation, some piece of closure that would make sense of this nightmare. We met at a coffee shop, the same one where we had gone on our first date. The irony was bitter on my tongue. She looked like hell, her eyes red, her hands shaking as she stirred her coffee, though she hadn't taken a sip. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The words hit me like a freight train. "And it's not yours." I don't think I've ever felt pain like that. It was like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart with their bare hands. I sat there, numb, staring at the woman I had once loved more than anything, and realized that I didn't recognize her anymore. She said it was a mistake, that she never meant to hurt me. But what did that even matter? The damage was done. I left the coffee shop that day feeling like a ghost. I had nothing. No wife, no best friend, no future. I was broke, barely making ends meet, and now I had to figure out how to start over. After the initial shock of the betrayal wore off, I realized I had two choices: let it destroy me or use it as fuel to become someone better. I chose the latter, but man, it wasn't easy. The first step was getting my finances in order. I was broke, like really broke. The divorce drained what little savings I had, and I was barely scraping by. I took a job at a local warehouse, stacking boxes and working long hours. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. I also started going to therapy. I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first. I'd never been the type to talk about my feelings, but I knew I couldn't keep everything bottled up. My therapist helped me process the anger, the betrayal, and the grief. It wasn't an overnight fix, but slowly, I started to feel like a human being again. Around this time, I rediscovered my love for photography. I'd always enjoyed taking pictures, but I'd never taken it seriously. Now, it became my escape. I'd spend my weekends wandering the city, capturing everything from street art to sunsets. It gave me a sense of purpose, something to focus on besides the mess my life had become. One day, I decided to post some of my photos on Instagram. I didn't expect much, maybe a few likes from friends and family. But to my surprise, people started following me. They liked my work. Some even reached out to ask if I did freelance photography. That's when the idea hit me. What if I turned this hobby into a career? I started small, taking on free gigs for friends and local businesses. I photographed weddings, birthdays, even a few pet portraits. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Slowly, I built up a portfolio and started charging for my services. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. There were days when I doubted myself, when the weight of everything I'd been through felt like too much to carry. But I kept going. I had to. About a year into my photography journey, I landed my first big client, a local magazine. They needed someone to shoot a feature on the city's street art scene, and they liked my work. That gig opened doors for me. Suddenly, I was getting calls from other magazines, businesses, even a few celebrities. I quit my warehouse job and went full-time with photography. It was scary, stepping into the unknown like that, but it was also exhilarating. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my life. But the rebuild wasn't just about my career, it was about me as a person. I started taking better care of myself, eating healthier, working out regularly, even meditating. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I even started dating again, though I took it slow. One of the biggest turning points came when I ran into Sarah and Mark. It had been about 2 years since the divorce, and I was at a coffee shop when I saw them. They were sitting at a table laughing like nothing had happened. For a moment, I felt that old anger bubbling up inside me. But then, something shifted. I realized I didn't hate them anymore. I didn't love them either. I just didn't care. They were part of my past, not my present or my future. And that realization was freeing. I didn't approach them. I didn't need to. I just finished my coffee, left the shop, and kept walking. Life kept moving forward. My photography business grew, and I started traveling for work. I visited places I'd always dreamed of: New York, Paris, Tokyo. I met incredible people, saw incredible things. And through it all, I kept healing. But the biggest surprise came about 3 years after the divorce. I met someone. Her name was Emily, and she was everything Sarah wasn't. Kind, honest, and fiercely loyal. We met at a photography workshop, and we just clicked. Dating again was scary. I'd been burned before, and I didn't want to go through that pain again. But Emily was patient with me. She understood my past and never pushed me to move faster than I was ready. We've been together for 2 years now, and she's my rock. She's the one who encouraged me to start teaching photography workshops, which has become one of the most rewarding parts of my career. Looking back, I can't believe how far I've come. The man I was 5 years ago, broken, betrayed, and lost, wouldn't recognize the man I am today. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. It's been 5 years since that fateful day when my life fell apart. 5 years of healing, growing, and rediscovering who I am. I'm in a good place now, happy, successful, and surrounded by people who truly care about me. But life has a funny way of bringing the past back around when you least expect it. It happened on a random Friday. I was in New York for a photography gig, shooting a feature for a travel magazine. The city was alive with energy, and I was feeling on top of the world. After wrapping up the shoot, I decided to treat myself to dinner at a fancy restaurant. That's when I saw them, Sarah and Mark. They were sitting at a table near the window, laughing and talking like nothing had ever happened. My first instinct was to turn around and leave, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the fact that I finally felt strong enough to face them. I walked over to their table. They didn't notice me at first, but when they did, the look on their faces was priceless. Sarah's smile froze, and Mark looked like he'd seen a ghost. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, Sarah spoke. "Hi," she said, her voice trembling. "Hi," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. The conversation that followed was awkward, to say the least. Sarah asked how I was doing, and I told her the truth. I was great. I talked about my photography career, my travels, and Emily. I didn't brag, but I didn't downplay my success either. I wanted them to see that I'd not only survived, but thrived. Mark barely said a word. He just sat there, looking uncomfortable. Eventually, Sarah brought up the elephant in the room, their child. She told me they had a daughter, now 4 years old. She showed me a picture, and I'll admit the kid was adorable. But looking at that photo, I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, just a strange sense of detachment. "I'm happy for you," I said, and I meant it. The conversation didn't last much longer. We exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then I excused myself. As I walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Seeing them didn't hurt like I thought it would. If anything, it gave me closure. But the story doesn't end there. A few months later, I got a call from Sarah. She sounded nervous, and at first, I thought something was wrong. But then she told me why she was calling. She wanted to apologize. Not just for the affair, but for everything. The lies, the betrayal, the way she handled the divorce. She said she'd been doing a lot of soul searching and realized how much she'd hurt me. She wanted to make amends. I listened quietly, letting her say her piece. When she finished, I thanked her for the apology, but told her I didn't need it. I'd made peace with what happened a long time ago. "I hope you're happy," I said before hanging up, and I meant it. Life has a way of coming full circle, and this was mine. The man I was 5 years ago, broken, betrayed, and lost, would have never imagined this moment. But here I was, standing tall, unshaken by the past. Today, I'm living a life I never thought possible. My photography business is thriving, and I've even started teaching workshops to help others discover their passion. Emily and I are stronger than ever, and we're talking about starting a family of our own. As for Sarah and Mark, I don't hate them. I don't love them either. They're just part of my story, a chapter that's been written and closed. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that life doesn't end after betrayal. It might feel like it does, but it doesn't. You have the power to rebuild, to grow, and to find happiness again.